Anyway, hate to be a little drum, but I just, I've been watching a couple of news articles this weekend and last night, and the country's really getting crazier and crazier. So, and I'm saying the same thing in hopes to get people's attention, because we need to have a united middle class. A united and healthy middle class creates a strong America. And you have to listen to who wants that to happen and has ways of making it happen. And then we need to vote people in and vote people out according to their strengths or weaknesses. And it's going to take some time to get finally a handle over our political system, because we have no handle over this. And the founding fathers gave us this. We owe it to them. They weren't perfect people, and they were elites, but they at least saw that this country, the middle class of this country, needs to run the important issues directed by our politicians. And just like you have a head of a company and you have the crew of a company, if that's not going right in a company, one or the other, that company goes out, right? Well, this country is much, obviously a whole different scenario, but it matches a bit, because we're on the way to communism right now, or socialism, and there's just no getting around that fact that either we come together and we pull together and we look out for our neighbors and we talk to each other and we do those things that our founding fathers gave us the freedom to do, or we don't have a society anymore. Anyway, we're going to start getting this down. I'm still working on some lighting. Barbie's moving to California, so she's going to be producer Barbie remote. But I think we might be able to get her on camera this way. So with all of that said, you guys have a great weekend. Say hi to each other. Go out and say hi to somebody. Just wave at them, man. Start that way. Just wave at them. Every time you see them, wave at them if you don't know them. And then you'll see the reaction change, evolve. You'll see the body language evolve. Go out and say hi to a couple of people today. Anyway, love you guys. Thanks for being here. Hey, how you guys doing? I am back and excited. We have Alan. I'll introduce him here in a minute. He's part of a world, a very large organization, it sounds like, but at least placed across places in helping to rebuild after tragedy and so forth. We were talking a little bit off stage here, and I'm really excited about this one because it hits home in such a weird way, in that my whole life pattern changed after, and those who know my story, I'll maybe bring something into it, but we're booked all the way through March. And we've got some really, really exciting topics coming in. But you know what? I don't want to, I'll save that for later. Let's get into this because I've been excited to go. We had a few technical difficulties. It's, when you're bringing on somebody who has so much worth in their day and day, those schedules get tight. So I am honored to bring on, my timing was off, Alan. How you doing, Alan?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the kind words, and I don't take it lightly to be here because I do think that what we're listening to, what we're putting into our mind changes what we say, think, do, feel, and believe. It changes our whole life. And so I started listening to podcasts 10 years ago, and they helped me sort of reconstruct my life. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wow. So you've been listening to podcasts, and I know in your bio, you talked about diving in the podcast world to pull this information and get this information. I'm glad you said that because, as you know, this is a real to me, you go in different medias and you get different stuff, right? So you come onto a podcast to learn something, to experience what that is, and to gain a depth, not just the top edge, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's breadth and depth, and breadth is how many people you reach, how wide the net is that you cast, and
Yeah,
depth is you go deeper and you dig deep into the brain, the body, the deeper parts of your emotions and your experience and your story and that kind of stuff. I think podcasts are a great medium where it's not a book, so it's not as boring,
right,
but you
right.
can go deep like a book, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great conversations with great people. So thank you for having me again. Gratitude over everything. And yeah, I'm ready to rock wherever you want to take it. I'm here.
All right, you got it. Now, every once in a while, I don't want to shock you, but I'll leave the screen because sometimes the questions I delay them, but they're still coming in pretty quick, and I don't want to miss any one question or the other. So if I disappear, finish your thought at least till I come back, or
Will do. Will
I'll
do.
jump on. Okay. So and in so saying that, um, as we market we talk about a journey, right? And that's what this podcast, this journey or that journey. So we're already getting some people to come on, and that's exciting. Why don't we go back? I know I haven't. The name of your company is, once again, um, double. No, come on. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Yep. Can
Oh,
you?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's start from the beginning and why that started, and why this path that you're on. Because I literally, much later in life, recently just had the same kind of thing where my whole perspective of life
Yeah.
changed overnight. My personality changed because of some traumatic things that happened in order. So, Alan, take it, man. I want to hear your story.
Okay. So the first thing to understand before I go into this is that I didn't understand any of this until later on. It's like a movie that you see as a kid and then you rewatch
Yeah,
the movie as an adult and you realize, oh, okay, got it.
right.
And so at the time I didn't understand this, but there's three main parts of my story that were extremely pivotal. And the third one that I'll get to is the one you're referring to that was very traumatic, that really shifted my perspective of the way I look at myself, others in the world, and it really shaped everything. That was 10 years ago. So I'm 36 now, and it starts back. I'm an engineer, so everything's numbers for me, so forgive me for that. But I started back when I was 2 years old.
I come from the manufacturing side.
Nice.
We work a lot with that, so I know that mindset. It's very organized.
Thank you. Yeah, so very analytical. So everything's numbers. So to put it in perspective, so I was 2 years old. My father was 28, my birth father, John McCorkle. He was the one of six kids, big Irish Catholic family. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
John McCorkle.
That
So
is
my
awesome.
birth father, my real last name is actually McCorkle. And so he passed away in a car when he was 28 years old. So my mom was 31, stay-at-home mom, two kids. My older sister was 6. I was 2.5, almost 3. And that's a tough day for a family.
That is
right?
a tough day. Yeah,
And so
that is a tough day.
yeah. So mom, stay-at-home mom. Then my stepdad came into the picture. So from age 3 to 14, I had a stepfather named Steve Lazaros. And we took his last name, I think around 6 or 7, I forget which. But from 3 to 14, I playfully refer to this part of my life as boats and ski trips and that kind of thing. It was the early to mid to late 90s .com bubble, and he worked for a company called AGFA, and we did very, very well. So from the outside looking in, things were really good. I mean, we had snowmobiles, and we lived on a lake, and we had boats and ski trips and deep sea fishing. We had a yacht eventually, and in the 90s, in the U.S. in particular, but globally, the .com bubble, I mean, the economy was doubling every 3 years, essentially, in the 90s. The 90s were a wild time.
At least.
Yeah, it's wild to look back at how much wealth was built and that kind of thing. But anyways, so from the outside looking in, things looked great, but my mom and stepdad didn't get along well, and that's a polite way to put it on a public medium.
Yep.
And my stepdad left at 14. So
Oh, wow.
when I was 14 years old, he left, took his entire extended family with him. To this day, I've actually never spoken to anyone from that side of the family. I talked to him a little bit on Facebook Messenger in my mid-20s and then again a little bit in my 30s, but I've never seen him since. And no one from his entire extended family either. And then because we were the Lazaroses, we weren't really associating a ton with the McCorkles either. Now, at the same time, that same year, so I'm 14 years old at the time, freshman in high school, and we'd go from boats and ski trips to, he took 90% of the income with him. Yeah. So now I go from, I'm hoping to go to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. That was my dream college. It's like a mini MIT engineering school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's $50,000 a year, and this is back then. So I go from I hope I get in to even if I do get in, I'm not going to be able to go. That same year, 14, my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and my Aunt Sandy sort of ostracizes us from that side of the family. Same year, my sister moves out with her older boyfriend. So I didn't realize any of this at the time, but now I realize there was a lot of abandonment challenges there. I kind of lost three families.
Your circle was shrinking dramatically.
Very quickly.
At 14.
14. So didn't understand it at the time, but I had 2 trauma responses. So there's 4 trauma responses. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And you can look all that up.
What was the last one? What was the last one?
Fawn.
Fawn. Okay.
That's the one I didn't know. So if you look up fawn in the psychology of it, it basically means you appease. So I became this sort of semi-Goodwill Hunting achiever, semi-genius math and science guy, straight A's in high school. But like I was afraid of abandonment. So I would just shrink myself and kind of appease. I didn't want to get abandoned. So do anything I could to keep and hang on to friends and family. So socially, I was a coward, quite frankly. But behind the scenes when no one was watching, it was fight. It was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. So I became this sort of prove myself super achiever guy. I got straight A's through all of high school. I got the President's Award. It's behind me, signed by George W. Bush. That's how few people get. Oh,
man. That's huge. That's huge.
And I got all the scholarships and financial aid that I could. So I got into WPI. I graduated with high distinction, computer engineering. And then I got my master's in business. And then I was off to the races. And at this point, graduated my bachelor's in 2012, master's in 2013. And the economy was coming back after 2008 in a big way. And I did work for iRobot, Sensata Technologies, Oz Development, a bunch of different tech companies. I eventually landed at a tech company called Cognex. I sell industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities. I do inside sales engineering, and then I get promoted to outside sales engineering. I'm in my early 20s. I went from 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125. I eventually land at $180,000 a year in my early 20s, a global 1% earner in my early 20s. I paid off 84 grand worth of debt in a single year. I had $150,000 in a Vanguard account because I grew up broke. So when my stepdad
packed it away.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't need much. I drove a 2004 Volkswagen Passat, all that stuff. So no kids, no mortgage, any of that. So I just banked it all and put it all in investments. Then I got in my car accident. So I'm 26 at the time. I have a lot of money. I have what I thought would make me happy.
Right.
And I'm very successful externally, but I'm internally not very fulfilled. And I get in a car accident, head-on collision. I'm up in New Hampshire. I was supposed to yield.
Head-on?
Head-on, yep. So this is 2015. The snowbanks were covering the yield sign.
Yeah, and I gotcha. Okay.
Bad winter. I was up in New Hampshire, my little cousin, second cousin actually, because from my mom's side of the family, there's only 2 people that I've ever seen since. One of them, his name's Jeff. His son is my second cousin, Dan. Dan was in the car with me. And I was supposed to yield, and I didn't. I end up on the wrong side of the road, dark winter night. I look down at the GPS. I look up. Biggest, brightest lights I'd ever seen. What I thought was a Mack truck. And for me, I'm 10 feet away from mortality, essentially. And 2 things saved my life.
How fast were you going? So you had like less than seconds to
30 at least 30. Yeah,
So
I was turning
you're
left, so at least
yeah.
30. The other car was probably doing 20 though. So this was not a fender bender. I mean, this was I didn't
No,
have
no. But
yeah,
what
it
I
was a
mean is
moment.
that moment when you look ahead and you're looking at your own mortality, uh, and it's not like you weren't aware it's coming, right? For that
Split
3 4
moment.
seconds, half a whatever split moment. Yeah, that's powerful. That's a holy cow moment. And
Yeah,
then
it
go
was.
ahead with your story.
Well, that's exactly it, right? Because when you have a moment like that, the life flashed
Hmm.
before your eyes, but it also happens in a millisecond. It's very interesting what happens to time in that moment, and no one really asks me much about that. But what I will say is, it was definitely a long, short amount of time, which seems to make
Yeah,
no sense. It's very paradoxical. It was
absolutely.
probably a couple seconds max, maybe a second, but it felt like a long and very short amount of time.
Just in
So
slow motion, man.
exactly. And so two things saved my life. Number one was the Volkswagen. Thank you, Volkswagen. I mean, I drove a 2004 Volkswagen Passat. I bought it in $5,000 cash because I didn't need anything fancy. And I used to call it the tank. Yeah, I mean, this is a
Oh
German
yeah.
engineered steel trap of a car, both
I-
airbags deployed. If I was in a different car, I might not be here. So thank you, Volkswagen. The whole front end was completely smashed in, but the frame stayed and both airbags deployed. So thank you, Volkswagen. One of the safest cars ever. Second thing is, it wasn't a Mack truck. It was a lift kitted pickup truck. And that also, I'm very grateful for
Gotcha.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
So airbags deploy. He hurts his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face on the airbag. But physically, we're obviously rattled, but we're okay. But my dad died in a car when he was 28.
Yeah.
So this
And
is
you were
my. Go ahead.
how old?
I was 2. So I
No,
was
no, no, no,
26
no.
at the time. Yeah, I was 26.
So wow.
Exactly. And so when I was 2, my dad was 28, died in a car in 1991. This is 2015. I'm 26. And this is the second chance my dad never got.
Wow.
And so for me,
That's
I
so
just
big.
quarter life existential crisis. Who am I? Who, what, when, where, why? Who am I? Why am I here? Did it matter? What am I going to do now? Where am I going to go? Where was I headed? All this stuff. So that was my turning point. That was 10 years ago. And the best way I can describe it now is, before 26, I was an achiever who was good at improvement and achievement externally, but I wasn't internally fulfilled. And after that accident, I turned it inward and I went all in on self-improvement, personal growth, personal development, mental health, inside, the inner work. And then I hoped success would be a byproduct. I actually went past broke, and I started a little company called Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. And I wanted to bring personal development to the school systems, and that was in some ways a mistake, and in some ways I'm still doing it. But ultimately,
Whoa, whoa,
I
whoa.
used. Go
Can you
ahead.
expand on the back and forth between still doing it, but it was a mistake? Is there a little tidbit in there?
Yeah, so that tagline, if your goal is to get speeches at high schools and middle schools and colleges, don't make your
Uh,
tagline what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. Because ultimately, self-improvement is, I think, the biggest opportunity to change the world. Because when I started doing self-improvement, my whole world changed. And then I inspired other people. And I think if we all sweep our own porch, the whole world will be clean, sort of thing. So
yep.
my orientation prior to the car accident was external achievement. And then after that, it was internal fulfillment, internal focus, internal self-improvement. And I went past broke. And then and these are the 4 buckets, and then we'll talk, because this is, I want to get off the soapbox here for a second. But I think all of us go through these 4 stages in life. The first stage is you're
Yeah.
unfulfilled and unsuccessful. When I was 14, I was a cart kid and a busboy. My stepdad left. I was unfulfilled and I was unsuccessful. I made minimum wage. I was struggling. Then I became externally successful but internally unfulfilled. I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I had more than enough in the bank, tons in Vanguard investments. But I was externally successful, and people thought I was happy, but internally I was not fulfilled. Then I flipped the script. I went past broke, liquidated all my assets, started my own company, and I was super fulfilled, happy, healthy, productive, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, but I was broke. So I couldn't sustain it. So I was internally fulfilled, but externally unsuccessful. And then in my 30s, I finally became internally fulfilled and externally successful. And now it's a mountain that gets higher as you climb it. And so if you can authentically look yourself in the mirror and say, I want my future to be an amplified version of what it is now, I think you've made it to that fourth bucket. And statistically speaking, most people don't make it to that fourth bucket. It took me till my 30s to make it to that bucket. And now that's what I do. I coach 27 business owners. And my job is not just to help them be successful, but to make sure their business is in alignment with their internal fulfillment and their core values.
Wow, go on a little bit. Well, first of all, I want to hit a couple of these so I don't get too far behind. You're looking at them as they come across the screen, right, Alan?
Yes, I can see. This episode is gold. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Alan. You are so incredibly welcome. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you.
You're talking about your story, and then there was some advice here I wanted to touch on before I went past it too much. Makes things new. What advice? So I think this is a great question.
Yeah. Okay. So, Alan, your words are powerful. What advice would you give to someone feeling stuck? The first thing is acceptance. So,
acceptance of the situation of the moment, you mean?
Acceptance of, I'll go into it. So three things. So
okay.
I have these 3 circles of the ego that my girlfriend really helped me create. And the outer layer, picture just 3 circles. The outer layer is who you want others to believe you are. The next layer in is who you want to believe you are. And then the next layer in is who you really are. Yeah. The car accident for me collapsed the circles. It was all the humble pie at once. And I've worked really hard to keep those 3 circles the same. I don't want to be different on this show than I am behind the scenes. Obviously, I need to bring the energy, so I need to be a little different. Obviously, you're going to be a little different at a funeral than you are here in front of people. But at the end of the day,
that's
who
a good point.
Yeah, my essence needs to be a little authentic and the same. And it's really hard to do that because socially we're all sort of trying to find belonging. So the first step, I think, is accepting all of who you are. So I'll give you an example. I drank too much and too often. I was 160 pounds and I was very successful externally, but I was skinny fat. I was not healthy. Mm-hmm. And I had to accept, okay, I drink too much and too often. I'm in sales. I'm around a bunch of other people that drink too much and too often, and I need to get my health together.
Yep.
And so I started fitness and I started dialing that up to 12 and I became a fitness coach, fitness competitor, fitness model. I did 43 photo shoots. I did 3 fitness shows. I won one of them. But ultimately
photo shoots.
Yeah.
So you were advertising your success.
I was a fitness.
Competition.
I was a fitness model. If anyone were to Google my name, there would be several fitness photos of me online. Yeah.
No kidding. I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
It was a dream of mine as a kid to be a model, an Abercrombie model, and I guess I kind of did that in a way. It was cool. I was a paid model. Yeah, it was a dream of mine. Not a lot of engineers that end up paid models, I guess, right? But anyways, to answer that question, if you're feeling stuck, I think what you need to do is admit the truth to yourself, about yourself, others, in the world. So for me, the truth was, you have a drinking problem. Alan, you have a drinking problem, and you grew up in an environment that had a lot of drinking. And until you own that it's a problem, you're not going to go work on it. So that admittance factor is always the first step. The first step to getting in shape is admitting you're out of shape. And that's the hardest step because it feels terrible to admit your inadequacies. It's really hard.
Right. Wow, that's very cool. I was thinking as you were telling that part of the story about how I'm asking this question because I had the same exact experience later in life than you, but what you're describing, I get it.
Car accident?
How often I had a life-changing event back
mortality
in May.
Moment.
Yeah. And I've had a stroke and I had a motorcycle not car accident, motorcycle accident in shorts and a t-shirt and tennis shoes. Not a bright move, but I lived. And right behind me when I crashed was a first first responder, and right behind them was a doctor. I literally had a ambulance there in the middle of nowhere between Illinois and Iowa, and I literally had it there in seconds or minutes, but and I survived. I broke every bone on the side of my body. It was pretty intense.
That was
and then
last year?
That was 2 years ago. And then last year I had a stroke, and then I had a mental collapse, which literally forced me to look into who I was and become honest in what I was and what I am. And that completely changed my life. I could everything. I mean, it literally changed who I was, because for the first time I became me, and not the mask that I had everybody on in front of me,
Yeah, that's the three circles I talked about. That's exactly it. It's you, all the circles collapsed, and now you're just there you are. Yep.
Yeah, you were blowing me away when you were talking about your story. The question is, though, how many people, it's not a raw number, it's not an exact number, I'm sure, but how many people do you think, what percentage of the middle class have had or are struggling with that mask, the three circles? How much of the adulthood is like that?
Well, I want to make sure that I share this background a little bit, because I've been mentoring for 10 years, coaching for 8. The only difference between mentoring and coaching is I started getting paid. But hundreds of people and thousands of hours. I actually have a 10,000 hour tracker. I'm big on tracking as an engineer. And I'm coming up on 10,000 hours of one-on-one coaching sessions. And these are hour-long sessions. So these are with individuals. And so I would say there isn't anyone who doesn't struggle with those three circles of the ego. I mean, every one of us, one of my main goals in life is to try to keep those three circles the same. In other words, I want who I want others to believe I am, who I want to believe I am, and who I really am. I want those to stay the same. And that's really hard to do, because of course you want to embellish a little, and of course you want to, hide your insecurities, and of course you need to protect yourself from people that are trying to sort of be the Trojan horse in your castle, so to speak. So we all have these psychological protective mechanisms, that basically keep us from the truth. And if you study the cognitive biases, there's hundreds of them. And in book club, we're reading a book called The Art of Thinking Clearly right now. I do a book club every week. And we've been doing it for 4 years. And this is our 19th book. But the cognitive biases are basically the psychological immune system, so to speak. And I'm for any clinicians or researchers out there, I'm making this simple on purpose, so don't quote me on this. But basically,
and please do keep it that way.
Yeah. We protect ourselves from painful truth when we're stuck in shame. And that's why therapy is so powerful, because I have a therapist named Carol, and she helps me keep those circles the same. Like, where am I lying to myself about myself? What's the story you tell yourself about yourself? Like, it's like a football athlete who was awesome in high school who still acts awesome, when in reality he's let it go, right? He still thinks he's athletic, but he's actually now out of shape. And the first step is admit you're out of shape, dude. Your football was 20 years ago. Stop acting like the man when you're not the man anymore. And unfortunately, that's really painful to admit to yourself. But ironically and paradoxically, the moment you admit you suck, you put yourself in a position to start getting better. If you think you're smart, you're not going to go work on getting smarter. And so it's this weird paradox where you have to say, okay, I'm not that smart. What I do know is limited, and what I don't know is limitless. And I'm going to be humble enough to actually go learn from amazing people. And I think that happens to us, unfortunately, a lot of times only after mortality moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously agree. That makes perfect sense. So you're saying that everybody had, no matter what kind of family you came from, or background, good, bad, or indifferent, basically everybody has some misalignment in those three circles. And then were you just saying then that a near life experience really accelerates the positive results of coming out of that versus somebody just living with it? Because without putting pressure on the side of the balloon, it's never going to pop, right? So you've got a moment that makes you go. For me, it was, why am I still here? I mean, literally, why am I still here? And 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 through that process, I had to go back and look at my life of who I was. And producer Barbie helped me with that a lot. And say, mental health, depression, all that stuff. We're here today because it was near death, and I took it serious.
Yeah. Well, the post PTSD is a thing, post traumatic stress disorder, and anyone can look that up, and
It is.
it's very,
Yeah,
yeah, very much a thing. The post traumatic
exactly.
growth part is also a thing.
Ooh,
So the part of my story with the
ooh.
car accident that I need to make sure I share is I had a lot of challenges after that car accident. It sounded, when I told the story, probably like all growth, but it was both. It was, so the PTSD side, double yellow lines scared me. I kept getting pulled over because I was too far on my side of the road because I was so afraid to cross the double yellows again. Being in crowds were hard for me. I was claustrophobic. I had to puff my chest up and walk in and out of doorways. So I had these challenges that I had to work through. I remember I would walk in and out of a doorway over and over and over again to try to get exposure therapy to overcome my claustrophobia after the car accident. Because after the car
Oh,
accident,
wow.
I had a lot of mental health challenges to work through. But on the other side of that was post-traumatic growth. I started reading personal development books. I started listening to podcasts. I started buying courses, and I started learning about myself, others, in the world in a big way. And I also created these huge dreams to try to bring personal development to the masses. And so I think that all of life is both positive and negative. And some people that have traumatic things happen to them, unfortunately, there's this quote called adversity can be your advantage because it gives you the emotional, mental, and spiritual muscle to go do extraordinary things that ordinary people can't do. What I've found, though, however, is that adversity without self-belief is just adversity. So I have, if you
Good
study,
point.
right? Okay, so
Yeah.
if you study something called self-efficacy, you can look this up on ChatGPT or Google. Self-efficacy is one's belief in their own ability to move forward. And there's external self-efficacy, which is more self-belief, and then there's internal self-efficacy, which is self-worth, your value. I had low self-worth but high self-belief. I was definitely a social coward and cowardly that way, but I had a lot of courage in terms of achievement. But at the end of the day, when adversity has struck me, because my childhood was very, very rough, it was very challenging. And now I look like this silver spooner who was born on third base. So that's been weird for me. But ultimately, all that adversity that happened in my childhood, I have other people that have gone through challenges too, but they didn't end up better on the other side. And I've been wondering my whole life, like, how did I create something out of this, and why didn't other people? Not from a place of arrogance, but from an actual place of curiosity. Like,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
why did I find a way to aim higher, work harder, and get smarter when these same adversities happened to other people and their response was the bottle or drugs or distractions or whatever? And don't get me wrong, I did drink a lot too, so I get it. But there's something called ACE score, adverse childhood experiences, and you can look this up as well. And people with a high ACE score have a higher statistical likelihood of early mortality. And so if you were abused growing up, or you had alcoholic caregivers or abusive parents or whatever it is, you have a higher statistical probability of dying young if you look at the research. And I
Say
was
that again. Whoa. Say that again.
Yeah.
Of dying young. What?
Yeah. So if you have, there's something called an ACE score, ACE, and you can look this up. And there's a higher mortality rate amongst the research of people who have a high ACE score. So if you had a very adverse childhood with a lot of trauma, sexual abuse, whatever it is, you have a higher likelihood of early mortality.
That makes a lot of sense, though, because now you're adding in depression. You're adding in people who can't take the day to day and mental illness. People take their lives. That makes perfect sense. It's probably a big difference, right?
Yeah, everybody.
Pretty good size difference.
If you research ACE score, ACE, it's really powerful, the research. And as someone who does have a very high ACE score, my therapist has confirmed that to a drastic extent.
Sure.
I was headed toward early mortality. And
Yeah.
basically what happens is you become sort of reckless. But some people that have really atrocious childhoods, they end up being unbelievable. Like an Oprah Winfrey would be a good example, where she had a really, really traumatic early life experience, but some people are able to shine through all that shit. Pardon my French if I'm not allowed to swear, by the way, I'm sorry. But
No, go ahead.
okay,
Screw
appreciate you.
it.
But but ultimately, the real difference maker, I think, I've been looking for this my whole life, because why me, right? How did I get here? I'm
Yeah.
like this successful business owner with a
Oh my
16
God,
person
yes.
team, heard in 175 countries out of 195 on the planet, and I just where
Yeah.
I came from
That's
versus where I
amazing,
am.
man.
You,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But when you get older, you look back and I spoke at my alma mater 3 or 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago now,
Oh, cool.
at WPI, and I trained these young kids, and they're 18, 19, and 20, and I'm 36 now, so I'm talking like an old timer. And
Exactly.
those 16 years are
Funny when
critical.
that changes,
Yeah,
isn't it?
isn't it?
There's
So,
a moment where you look around the room and you're the oldest. I always was the youngest. And
yeah.
there's that moment.
Well, the other
Right?
piece of this too is 16 years. Though I always say doggy years and tech years. So in
Yeah.
doggy years, 1 year is equivalent to 7 years. In
Yeah.
technology in the 21st century, there's
Oh,
tech
jeez.
years. So those 16 years between me and these kids, think about how much has changed in those 16 years. Apple's only
We talk
48
about it a
years old.
lot.
Google's only
Yep.
28 years old, right? So Google didn't exist when I was a kid. So these kids don't know anything. They don't know the planet without Google. They don't know the planet without the internet. So
Mm-hmm.
my point of this whole thing is I look back at these kids and I'm like, what the heck? I was so different than them even back then. So I've been trying to figure this out. So I finally figured it out. It's how much someone unconsciously believes in themselves. So you have the story you tell yourself about yourself. That's the prefrontal cortex. But deep down, you have the subconscious and unconscious mind. That's where real self-efficacy resides. I have one person I'm thinking of, Christina. She's the chief operations officer of my company. She has a ton of self-belief deep down, but she doesn't think she does. And then I meet these other people who think they believe in themselves a ton, but they actually don't ever take action.
Sure.
Got it. See, they think they believe in themselves, but deep down they don't. Versus
The
Christina,
power is deep.
it's
The
the
power is
unconscious.
from,
And
yeah.
so, to bring this full circle, if adversity becomes your advantage if you have high,
Mm.
deep levels of self-efficacy, which I happened to have, and I don't know if that's because my mom helped me believe in myself or because I just always did or I was born with it. I don't know that part, but I do know self-belief makes the difference of whether or not you take adversity and run with it versus crawl into a bottle, for lack of better phrasing.
Yeah, or anything other than that. And the I do a lot on this subject, or have done quite a bit on this subject because uh, I I I understand your story. I get it. I mean, I'm as many others that I know, especially the difference in men's mental health. There's a difference because you're not allowed to react a certain way
Mm-hmm.
to what's happening in your world. You're the provider, you're the wall, you're the person that people rely on, and that changes a little bit in time, but before it certainly was dramatically that way. And people, nobody ever saw their dad cry, kind of thing. So you
Yeah.
had to also hold those feelings in, and I called it. I put things in boxes, and that's what started building the mask because I became something different.
Mm-hmm. The There's a modality of therapy called internal family systems. It's the best representation I can think of for someone who doesn't know about IFS is the Pixar movie Inside Out.
Oh yeah,
Okay, there you go. So essentially, if you watch the
yeah,
second Inside Out, there's a vault of things she has hidden away in her consciousness.
right.
That's the compartmentalization that you're talking about. What a lot of men, unfortunately, are taught to do is bury it.
Yep.
Okay, that happened. Get over it. Bury it. Get over
Yeah.
it, bury it. Get over it, bury it. And it's known in IFS as an exile. It's a part of yourself, a memory or a truth about yourself that you've buried. And that's why when you face mortality, the floodgates open, and it can be very traumatic because okay, I do have a drinking problem. Okay, my childhood was abusive. Okay, my stepdad did leave. Okay, but and you realize that you didn't mourn a lot of this stuff, and you didn't work through a lot of that stuff, and that's why I highly recommend therapy for men. I think it's important.
Yeah.
I highly recommend therapy for everybody, but
Totally
men,
agree.
if you look at the statistics, men are less likely to do it, and I think men are just less humble,
Sure.
myself included, statistically.
Yeah.
But I think the inner work is really important, and I do think that's shifting, fortunately, because this whole
The inner work, or what do you mean shifting?
Men are starting, I think, to wake up to the fact that
100%.
crying is not weak,
Right.
and it's actually strength, and it's important to feel things, and it's important to. This whole never let them see you sweat is no one's falling for it anyway, right? Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
And my stepdad had that pretty hard, where it was, I mean, I never saw him cry. My mom, I think, saw him cry once at his mother's funeral. But ultimately, yeah, for any men out there, my sister was encouraged to have a diary and to write in her journal. I didn't get a journal till I was 26, right? So it's important for us to self-reflect. It's important for us to do the inner work, because as a man, you're kind of taught, just go achieve and you'll be worthy. And that's just not true. It does help, and you do still need to achieve, because if you don't, you are screwed. But it's not the whole picture, right? The inner world is as important as the outer world, and they both matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. Inner world, outer world, I get that. But all the work, I've seen this trend, but we're starting to come back and take ownership of our rebuilding ourselves, being honest with ourselves, doing the steps, doing the things that are needed to be able to actually deal with that. Because I know when you say you have to feel, and men have, go put blinders on and go do it, right? I'm not complaining, but it's the different attitude that, like you said, is starting to change. And I think that's going to save a lot of lives, to be honest with you.
Definitely.
I mean, look at guys coming back from the war.
Men, yeah, exactly. The suicide rate in men is very high.
Oh, very high.
Very, very high. I think it's significantly higher than for women. And I think the main reason
100%.
for that is the fact that the women are more humble and willing to look inwardly. Statistically, not always. Statistically, like, I don't want anyone to take one thing I say and then broadcast it.
We're going to make a clip of that and exactly. Then throw it out. Look at what a jerk he is.
Yeah, what a butthead, right? Yeah.
What a butthead.
Yeah.
But what's, dude, I forgot my point. It was too funny. The way things are evolving.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The way things are evolving now, like I said, I think people are now going to have the opportunity to, for the first time, especially men, like you said. Yeah. I get that. You've got to feel it changes you.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, you don't know it until you do it. But I mean, I have after my thing, people actually came up to me and said, wow, you've really changed. This whole story came out of that, all that. So it's amazing doing the inner work.
Yeah.
Getting to be able to feel, literally be able to feel love, everything else. And then looking back and starting to see why you're here on this earth and fulfilling your purpose. But it starts with admitting, right? Like you said, admitting and inner work. I want to just, before we get too further past this, but self-improvement, being consistent in it is like the baseball. You gotta hit 10,000 balls to really get your stroke down right. So of course. in order to create that tool, you've got to work on purpose at
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, right?
Oh, every day. And the question, Brian, thank you for sending this. How do you stay consistent with self-improvement? This is the part where Kevin and I, my business partner, Next Level University, it's Next Level U, pun intended, right? So we're heart driven, but no BS. Heart driven means we're sincere and we have a sincere desire to help, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's brutal. Every goddamn day. Every day.
Yep.
I was on a podcast one time with a woman named Deborah, and I said, the truth is, she's like, well, how did you do all this? How did you guys transform? How do you have all these teams and all this stuff? You're hurting all these. I said, well, Kevin and I work really hard. She said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I haven't taken a full day off in 10 years. And she said, oh my God, Alan, that's so bad for you. I said, no, Deborah, that's bad for you. Some days it's 1 hour. Some days it's 16 hours. Some days it's probably 18 hours. But I take care of myself. And how do you stay consistent with self-improvement? You embrace the suck. You embrace the suck. There is no, my girlfriend and I, we started a little streak, an exercise streak in March 1st of 2022. I came to her and I said, sweetheart, I want to beat my old best. She said, what do you mean? I said, my old best was 3.5 months. I want to get to 4 months straight without missing a day of exercise. And she said, okay, let's do it. Yeah. She's super achiever. So she's like, I'm in, let's do it. I said, okay, here's the parameters. We're going to do a half an hour a day, start small, and walking counts, basketball counts, soccer counts, weight training counts, but it has to be intentional. We can't do this, well, we went shopping and walked around today. So no, it has to be an intentional 30 minutes a day where we set a timer.
Actual exercise. Exactly.
And intentional, predetermined exercise. And we did it and we started it and now it's become this whole thing. So we got past 4 months and I said, we did it. Awesome. I'll never forget this. We're at the end of the first year and we pull in together after the gym and I say, sweetheart, we did it. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, it's been a year. And I said, she says, oh, awesome. Right. And she's a super achiever. So she thinks nothing of it. She's just like, whoop-de-doo. Right. Awesome. Go.
Yep.
Half hour a day. Woo. Right. But that's her standard. And I'm like, well, that's a big deal. Not a lot of people exercise every day for a week, never mind a year, right? That's a big deal. And she's like, let's do this for the rest of our life. And I had a mini panic attack. And I said, sweetheart, I can't make a promise to myself unless we're actually going to do this. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you know what I'm like every day? She said, yeah, let's do it. I've always wanted to do it. Let's do it. I said, nice. You're out of your mind like me. Perfect. We've been going for 1,085 days as of today.
Wow. So that's days. 4. Is that reach 4? No. 3 and change.
I got you. Right? 1,085 divided by 365. We're about to be 3. Holy crap. We're coming up on 3 years.
Yeah.
2.97.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. That's impressive, man. How do you balance external success with internal fulfillment there?
You integrate them. So one of the problems with one of the reasons why I was so unsuccessful early in business is because the work that's the most meaningful is rarely what the economy pays for. Let me explain.
Okay.
So like a Michael Jordan, he's very fortunate because what's most meaningful to him is basketball. Mm-hmm. And he was born at a time when basketball can pay a lot. And obviously he worked really hard and he's amazing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, how much would Michael Jordan get paid 150 years ago? $0. There was no market for basketball. There was no NBA. So one of the things I help my clients with is, listen, here's what the world needs. Here's what you want to do. And here's what the world will pay for. That third one's really hard. And so self-improvement is my life. And I teach it for people and I help people reach their potential, but nobody pays for that. So I've had to reframe it, and now I'm a business coach. See, people will pay you to help them grow their business. They will not pay me for self-improvement. But guess what? You come to me and you want me to help you grow your business. Guess what I'm going to coach you about? You got to improve yourself.
Self-improvement. Yeah, so, I noticed that both entrepreneurship and inner working, that clings together in your world, because that personality, now you are activated to do more. Is that why? Not just self-improvement, but that's a link with entrepreneurship, because that's another level than just going to work every day.
Well, people say, well, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. First of all, I think that's
Exactly.
scary. There's a bunch of things around the thing you love that you aren't going to like. And so I've been in business for
Yeah.
8 years. I started my first company when I was at Campus Libre in 2012, but that failed. And ultimately, 8 years in Next Level University. It started off as the Hyperconscious Podcast, then we rebranded. But it's been 8 years in the podcast game. Okay, I call it the want, love, hate framework. Every person who comes to me and they say, I have this goal. We all want a better body. We all want to be more in love. We all want to make more money. Want, love, hate. Okay, I want more clients. I love one-on-one coaching. I hate social media.
Yeah.
Guess what I have to do in order to have more clients? Everything works that way. I'll give you one more. I want to be in great shape. I love weight training. I do. I really do. I hate dieting. I hate it. I hate it. It sucks so much. I got Domino's last night. I can't stand dieting. Guess what I have to do?
Work harder.
Everything
Burn
you have
off
to
more.
do, what you have to do is what you hate. If I focus on dieting, I'll get my goal. So we all have New Year's resolutions, right? What you want is linked to what you love. Want more clients, love coaching, hate social media, need to do social media. Want
First
a
thing
better
out the gate
body,
every day.
right? A little
That's
bit.
the first thing you got to go. Have you
Eat
ever
that
heard
frog.
of Swiss cheese? But just Swiss cheese is. I think I remember the frog. But just attack that first thing, and pretty soon you start breaking it down because it's a big block of cheese, and then
Yes.
now it's something more manageable.
Well, what I've found coaching people to achieve their goals is every goal you have is on the other side of some process you kind of hate. And that's why I don't believe in fluffy feel good manifestation stuff. It's just not real. I won a fitness show and it was atrocious. The process was terrible. The trophy was awesome and the body was awesome. I had an 8-pack, but the process
Wow.
was terrible. Yeah.
I've had a 1-pack for a while. It got to 2, but I didn't get past that. I was a wrestler too, all through
Nice.
college, and so back then I hear you. But the what I meant and what we kind of not conflicted, but didn't match up there was you said find something you love to work and call it work. The reason I think, if there's any value of that, it's not just to be fluffy. It's to be, hey, it's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be a lot of work. You better love what you're doing before you dive into that, because you're going to need to love what you're doing on those days that you're midnight and you don't get it and you got payroll next week, or there's hard work, and if you love it, it's not so bad.
If you love it, it's worth it. It doesn't mean you have to like every minute, but it's worth it.
No,
NLU has been, being a leader of my company and leadership. We had 24-person team at the end of 2020, beginning of 2023. We had a 24-person team. We were growing 119% year over year. We had 24 departments and a charity. Now we have, to put this in perspective, now we have a 16-person team, including me, and only 13 departments. So after COVID, the whole internet, podcasting, all this stuff, we grew like crazy. And businesses fail for 2 reasons. They either grow too slow or they grow too fast. In the beginning, we were growing too slow and going to go out of business. And then we grew too fast and almost went out of business. It was like, yeah, buy it, do it, run it, payroll, run it, do it, hire them. It was bad. And now we've contracted a bit, and now I'm a lot more intelligent. I'm still only 36, so I'm a young leader. But I'll tell you what, the last 5 years have been brutal.
And now it's more manageable just by a little trimming.
Yep. We trimmed the fat a lot out of necessity. And it's been really painful on my heart, for sure.
Wow. Hey, I want to go back to one thing that I've skipped a couple of them, but they're just blowing smoke up our dress. And so, but the question that I put down there, you talked earlier about your book club. That mindset was changed at all through the book, or is that just an entertaining thing you do? What the question is, loving the discussion. What's the best book that shaped your mindset?
It would be hard to pick just one. I mean, some of the
Yeah.
books that I think, so there's what, 140 million books or something like that. I think a lot of them are fluffy, feel good, not great. I'm not a big fiction guy. It is what it is. I like the Harry Potter series,
Yeah.
but for me,
Oh, yeah.
self-improvement books, I'll just stick there because I'm not an expert on anything else. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, I think, is a very, very, very powerful book. And if
Okay.
I could go back in
Good.
time, I have my top 5 favorite books right behind me right here, and The Compound Effect is one of them.
Okay.
Right here.
That's
And
yeah.
Rationality is the number one, but I think that that's not a good starter book. So the Compound Effect is essentially this idea that small, seemingly insignificant choices, they compound over time. And so I did the math on this. I have a financial calculator bookmarked. And I just want to give this perspective. So if you put $1 into a bank account and you grow it by 0.1% per day, in 50 years, you actually have $84 million.
Yeah, because it compounds.
It compounds.
Right?
And so
Yeah.
0.1. So
Wow.
who here
Nice.
believes they can get better by 1/10 of 1%?
That's
Anyone
key.
can get better by 1/10 of 1%. And if you do that long term and you're very, very, very consistent, it will change your whole life. It just mathematically will. Now, here's the question. Who actually wants to do that every day, right? So my business partner, Kevin, is like, Alan, no one's going to wait 50 years. You know, you're out of your mind. And I'm like, yeah, but. So we do an episode every day, and we hopefully will help people.
Are you guys doing an episode every day?
Yeah, 1%
Is it all
improvement.
about the same
Yes.
thing that we're talking about here now?
Health, wealth, and love. It's level up your life, love, health, and wealth. 1% improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free, every single day. Next level you, best version of yourself. Not trying to be like Kevin and I, but try to be the best version of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you turn pain into power? Well, that's a good question.
I think that pain, if you have self-belief, can drive you. So I have a list in my head, I'll keep it anonymous, of haters who I think are bullies. And
Yeah.
they very much bullied me when I was young, and I didn't always look like this. I was, I look young now. Imagine me at 14, right?
Yeah, no kidding. You do look young. Absolutely.
So
Good genes.
Thank you. It's been really tough because I'm a business coach, and people love when you
Yeah.
look 15 and you're their business coach, especially men. But
They
that's
walk
why I
in and
have
go,
a little bit of facial hair. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, good. You're nailing it.
Yeah, I'm trying. I always say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 37. But ultimately, when I was 14 years old and I told you how bad that year was, stepdad leaving, all that stuff, I was this little prepubescent kid. My sister was a senior in the same high school, and she was super popular, and her friends gave me the pity dances, and I mean, no girls looked twice. I was still a little boy, but I remember I'm like, I'm gonna play the long game, and I got bullied a lot, and I was the nerdy straight A student, right? And so, yeah, I have a list of people who I think are terrible human beings, and they were bullies. And
Yeah.
I'm going to get the last laugh. And I ran into one of them actually at the gym, who now he looks like crap, and I'm twice his size. And he was really abusive to me on the basketball court when I was young. And I wanted to pin him up against the wall and, that kind of thing. But I just said, two wrongs don't make a right. Obviously, I'm way ahead of him in everything that matters. I'm just going to move on. But I will say, I do think there's something very visceral that you have to let it drive you. So you can turn pain into power, but you have to turn it into drive. You have to. I'm not saying that you got to be unkind to anybody. That's not what I'm saying. But you got to turn it into drive. You got to.
Focus.
Because that's the only way pain can be meaningful, is if you turn it into something and transform it into something great. And yeah, I'd be lying to everyone if I didn't say I had a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah. And you know what? Especially in sports, you hear that a lot. Oh, damn it. What's his name? Quarterback just retired from
Tom
the
Brady.
Patriots. Tom Brady talks about that. Michael Jordan talks about that. A number of different people, they use that instant to fire them up and keep them going.
You got to. You got to. It's a competitive drive. At the end of the day, it is you against you. But trust me, you're going to get so much. I mean, there are people that were just cruel, and they they would rather tear you down than build their own
Wow.
thing. And you gotta. There's a book called Anti-Fragile by Nassim
Okay.
Taleb, and the idea of anti-fragile is the more you attack something, the stronger it gets. So if you can become anti-fragile, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? The more I
Mhm.
get attacked, the more I've had team members, I've had a lot of people that are very unkind, and it didn't make any sense, and it was existential. Like, I did nothing but try to help you. I'm like helping kids now. At least before, when I wasn't as good of a person, at least it had some merit when you attacked me. Now I feel like I'm doing good in the world every day. I'm like helping people every day. I'm serving. And I just realized, okay, the higher you climb, the more you're
There's
going
going
to
to be
get
jealous people.
attacked by jealous people that have a trauma response
Yeah.
to that. And they'd
Yeah.
rather tear you down to feel bigger. And
Makes
if you
them,
can
yep.
use that to drive you to be even better, I think that as long as it doesn't drive you crazy, it can drive you in a good way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels good too, because it's in here, not spilled out into the universe.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I've
of
got a
course.
couple more. Sorry. You
Yeah.
got it. I have a couple more questions here, and then rolling into the the things you want that we may or may not have missed. But I talk about producer Barbie, and she just left this note. I didn't want to miss that. She is. She, what she's saying there, I think, is a little undercover for. Thank God you and Rod are talking about this, man. Thank God it's happening, because it's such a big deal. And like she said, no matter what age, I was over 60 when my entire world didn't make any sense. And I had to go back and look through life, and had to admit to myself, fuck, what an asshole. What,
Yeah.
I mean, just thing after thing after
Good for
thing.
you.
So anyway,
Good for you.
uh yeah. So, and
Good for you.
she helped me with that. You talk about your girlfriend, really being some inspiring moments there. It takes a team sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
Uh
We all needed
let's see, we
someone
already
to
did
believe in
this.
us. Yeah, we all
Yeah.
needed someone to believe in us. Yep.
Okay. So how do you deal with negative thoughts?
Yeah.
They're gonna happen no
The
matter how hard you're working on it, right?
yeah, well, I think everybody has a record playing, and
Ooh.
the record playing in some people's head is it's never going to work, you're not good enough, you suck, you're the worst.
Yeah.
I don't have that one, and that's actually why I think I trigger so many people, is because I don't struggle with self-doubt that much. And I used to be too
Mm-hmm.
much of a coward to admit that. I would pretend, "Oh yeah, I struggle with it." No, when it comes to external achievement, I feel very competent and capable. My record playing is, you got this. You can do it. You got this. You can do it. It's going to work. You got this. So I actually have to be more humble. So for me, I have to focus on humility. Self-belief is already there. I have to focus on, Alan, this might not work out. Like, this might go horribly
Well,
wrong. You need to
and
prepare for the worst.
it's also sending a positive frequency or energy out into the world. If you do have that humility, it
Agreed.
levels things off, right?
Yes.
For other people to accept
Yes. So
as the truth.
if you have high self-belief, high optimism, you need humility in the other direction to stay centered.
Yeah.
So I think when I was a kid, I was perceived as very cocky because I had a lot of self-belief and I didn't work on humility as much as I wish I had. Plus, I hadn't been humbled by life as much as I have now. But for those of you out there that struggle with self-doubt, the negative thoughts, you really do have to work on that. For me, I actually have the opposite issue where I have to say, Alan, like, you kind of suck. You need to get it together. Like, come on. You're really not, you're not that great. I have to, so I call it the drive to 5. If you're overly optimistic, you need to level set and constantly be like comparing to your potential to make sure that you keep after it, because I'll get lazy otherwise. Whereas people that are very pessimistic and don't believe in themselves, you need to be lifted up. We all know someone who the last thing they need is to be lifted up. They're just going to end up more delusional, right? So my business partner, Kevin, he needs to be lifted up and he needs to stack his wins. For me, I need to look at every inadequacy. I need to constantly be on myself, coaching myself like, dude, come on, get it together. You're better than this. And so negative thoughts is all depending on which record is playing.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, way of looking at that, because, like you said, if you're uh, ultra confident, that can come out looking cocky. If you're ultra, um, self doubting, then that comes out looking very unappealing. So whichever you're doing, you've got to balance that, um, where you are to be what you just said, leveled off.
Well, the self-doubting, that can look humble when in reality it's not.
Ah,
It can look like you're humble when in reality you just don't believe in yourself. So then
that
when those
makes
people
sense.
start building self-belief, sometimes they get cocky. I've seen that
Yeah.
happen. Clients that'll
Ah,
come to me and then years in they'll achieve all their goals and they'll get wicked cocky. And I'll
yeah.
go, wait, whoa, what happened to you? You were so humble. Oh, you believe in yourself. Let's not forget how much I played a part in this, right?
Yeah, right.
And then they start getting delusional, and then they go back, and it's a whole thing. But for all of us, we all have a record playing, positive or negative, about story you tell yourself about yourself. And by the way, I'm talking about unconscious. I'm not talking about conscious.
Right.
So unconscious, you have a record
100%.
playing, yeah, and you have to try to center up based on whatever that is. So if you're overly optimistic, you got to be a little harder on yourself. Come
That's
on,
so
you're
cool.
better than this.
Love it.
If you're
Love it.
pessimistic, you really need to build yourself up a lot inside. And often we're doing the opposite of what is constructive.
Yeah. No, we're imperfect human beings, and until we really work on something, we don't understand what we're not doing. What One last question here is, what's what? And this might be a hard one because of what you said. I think
Yeah.
the answer now is level up, or is level,
Yeah.
and but how would you answer that question to one thing you can do every day to level up?
Measure. The people always ask me if you could
Ah,
go back
okay.
and talk to yourself 10 years ago after the car accident, what would you say? Tracking habits. Tracking
Yeah.
habits will change your world. All my team members, all my clients, 27 business owners currently, they all track metrics and habits. So my coaching is goals, priorities, metrics, habits, skills, and identity work. The identity is after. So once you have your goals, priorities, metrics, habits, and skills in alignment, you find out you're not doing them. And then you have to go in the inner
Mm,
world and realize what you're afraid of
mm,
and that kind of stuff. And the identity is what you think about yourself. But
mhm.
ultimately, if I could give you one thing to level up, track your habits. So we have a Dreamliner where I track my habits every single day. We use Google Sheets in my company.
You
But
mean active habits, like
yeah,
physical habits, or
so
what you think, or both?
uh, active habits, behaviors. So I'll give you an example of a
Gotcha.
metric. So I track my weight every day. I'm 195.4 as of yesterday. I haven't tracked it yet today. And I track my listens. We're at 1.17 million listens across our podcasts.
Wow,
So
dude, I'm so
that's a
I'm impressed. That's awesome.
thank
And
you. Thank
it's
you.
also a striver, isn't it? You're measuring,
Yes,
you're on the right path, but on top of that, it's kind of like that extra little boost of adrenaline, because hey, look where we are, man, and we know we're not done. It's like a football team, right? The
exactly.
playoffs isn't the end thing. You got to keep going, but man, you're feeling pretty dang good when you're uh, 11-1 or whatever.
If you don't imagine an athlete that doesn't measure anything, imagine an Olympic athlete that doesn't measure anything,
No,
right? Whether it's
that
Michael
they
Phelps
wouldn't
in the
be.
pool, yeah, you have to measure. So, habit tracking, the one thing to level up to answer the question, it's tracking. If you want to stay on track, you have to track, and the metrics and habits that you choose are really matter. There's a book called Measure What Matters by a man named John Doerr, and he was early in Google, a consultant, and yeah, it's a powerful start. Yeah, but if anyone wants help tracking, let me know. That's my thing. I mean, if I can get you to measure the right thing, I can keep you focused on
Yeah.
the right thing, and then you invest your time, effort, and money into the right persons, places, things, and ideas, and then you'll get the results that you want. Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up here, I'd like you to do that. How do people I always put my email at the end, just because questions come up later, and it's easier to distribute, because I'm not you, but they're asking about you, about the things. And I remember we did a thing on uh, uh, not Bitcoin, but the that the crypto, and people started, after the show was over, they were sending me emails. How can I do this? How can I do that? So I would suggest, it's up to you, leave your contact information there, but also as you're wrapping up here, what do you want us to know? How do people contact you on the things we're chatting about?
Yeah. Thank you so much again for having me. I really appreciate it. I think you and I both have to use the bathroom, so we'll get out of here in a second. The thing that I started saying, I certainly do. The thing I started saying is if you are humble and grateful and you have a sincere interest to work and earn your way to both external success and internal fulfillment, you're going to love me, you're going to love Kevin, you're going to love NLU, and you reach out. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can DM me on Instagram. That's probably the best way. You can Google
direct message on Instagram.
That's where absolutely. Please.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
100%. Or Facebook Messenger, whatever it might be. I think Instagram DM is the best. And it's Lazaros88, Alazaros 88 at Instagram, or on Instagram. You can also Google my name. All this will come up. And
yeah, sure.
The other piece of this is what I finally had the courage to start saying.
And you're modeling pictures too, right?
Well, those will probably come up. Yeah. Some of them are flattering. None of them are nude. They're all tasteful. It's all good.
I did that going into college, and it's funny to look back on.
Yeah, there's a couple tight shorts ones that I'm not thrilled about, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not the first person to make a mistake, right? The second piece that I finally have the courage to say is, if you do not have humility, if you are arrogant on any level, if you're entitled and you want huge rewards for minimal effort, do not reach out under any circumstance. I'm just not going to be helpful. Yeah. I'm not for big rewards for minimal effort. We're just not going to get along. You're going to waste my time and yours. Yeah.
100%. Well, any last comment there? Well, you just made one. I want to make sure you're not leaving here today and I wish he would have kept on that thought. I wanted to expand on that. Are you all good? Am I not coming across, Alan?
Oh, are you asking me? I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were asking the audience. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're coming across.
Oh, yeah. No, bad. I just wanted to, before, we sign off, I've got some administrative things to do. Yeah, you bet. How do you want to sign off?
Yeah, one little tidbit would be the next level version of you. So I'm Alan version 3.6. Alan version 3.6 is far more capable, far more aware, far more virtuous than Alan version 2.6. And just like your iPhone updates, you can update yourself. And when you do, your whole life will get better eventually. But the day-to-day will be challenging in order to get there. And I think that your bigger, better, brighter future is on the other side of taking personal responsibility for what you say, think, do, feel, and believe. And yeah, dig deep and give it your all, because we only get one shot at this thing.
100%. Absolutely, man. I told you when we started, I've been waiting for this for a while. You and I, or your company and I, talked, many weeks ago, and this was the date that it all worked out. So I've been circling that on my calendar because it's such an interesting talk, and we do different ones on this subject, but that is a unique and inspiring way to go. And I encourage everybody to get out there and look Alan up. Alan, it's been a pleasure. Say goodbye to my favorite people in the world.
Yes, thank you all so much. Thank you for listening, and just thank you as well for having me. I really appreciate it. Seriously. Yeah, thanks.
Anytime. Love to do it again. Same. Work on some other subjects, and yeah, let me know. We'll reach out to each other. Have a good one, Alan.
You too.
All right. Well, that was even better than I was hoping it'd be, because I mentioned Barbie, producer Barbie was on there and made an exacting comment, and I got her message, and because she knows I've been looking forward to this as well. It's an important topic, and it's very important to me. So tomorrow we've got another interview. I hope I don't screw this up and take forever, because I had to book 4 people just today, which obviously I love, but I'm going to go into my StreamYard here. No, I'm not going to do that. We have coming up, we have Abby Cohen, bringing minds and healing conflicts and meaningful relationships. We have coming up Robert Hevlin, and this is another one I'm really, really, really excited about. Dude's a Marine. I grew up under a Marine. You know, my dad was a Marine, and he talks about he has a nonprofit where people are they're helping people deal with the mental stresses. And we talked about this earlier before. You know, mental health is a big problem for men in the United States here. And then we also have this dude that's a retired Secret Service. I mean, that's kind of big badass dude, right? And we are going to get into some do's and don'ts with school safety, because the whole school system, in my opinion, needs to be redone. But and they're talking about that now. But you know, if there's a danger, there's also ways to be smart about, and he's getting into those things. And I was just talking to somebody else about Daniel here. He's a global management, talent management person. He does that for many big companies, and it just goes on. We've got working on careers, working on wellness. There's one that I won't get into, but it's about camera angles, and it's really fascinating, this different take on it. Anyway, that's it. If I'm not careful, I'll be talking for the next hour or so, and I don't want to do that to you guys. So just come back, check out our videos. I'm trying to make this a full-time thing. I've gone both feet in, and I now have my mission, as we were talking about. I'm convinced of that. So winding down my business and doing this full scale, full time. So please keep supporting. Come in and come in and subscribe, and let's change the world together, a conversation at a time. Go say hi to somebody. I love you guys very, very much. This is Rod Duff at Insights and Straight Talk, and we're going to talk again. I think tomorrow's the next. I don't even know what day it is today. Tomorrow, I think, is the next one. Like I said, we're booked through the end of March. There's a couple holes, but check it out. Come and see our obviously the podcast, but www.rodduff.com and www.imstri.com. Those are good sources to also see what we're doing here. I'm gonna sign off. Again, love you guys. I really appreciate all the support, and I can't wait until we see each other again next time. Bye for now. So, as you could tell, I just got through running across the cornfields with my dogs to come over here on a Saturday and say hi to everybody. So I'll get better at this. We'll get higher quality in the editing room, because I do all my own production too. Anyway, again, love you guys. Go say hi to somebody. Just wave at somebody. Start there. Just wave at some people. Younger people, older people. I did that backwards, didn't I? Younger people, older people. Just go out and say hi. Let's start. There was a hashtag that Barbie wants to get started. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to look through some of the old films. We need to be pulling together and discussing these items, and not be afraid to have a dinner. What do they call it? Table dinner, or around the dinner table. Politics is a device to keep this country moving forward. I know that all the people in the middle class want this country to keep moving forward. I also know that the politicians we have currently in place on both sides of the aisle, some way more than others, but we have a situation now where the politicians don't want us to necessarily move forward. They want, and our education and our information to be lower and lower so that they can control more. They have very perfect lives, really. And these are the things we don't understand. You know, we need to really be able to have the courage and have the patience to be looking at our politicians more directly, with more information. As I've said before, we have a utopia coming, and if we don't have control over our politicians, as that utopia comes, then we won't have that utopia. We will be moved into whatever needs that the country has, without the rewards. This middle class of America has been stronger and done more than my own. I know I'm biased, but than any other. As a matter of fact, all the middle classes, around the world, is what the economy is built on, and we have no say at how that money is spent.